be videotaped and audio taped, so make sure you just squeeze up a little bit. Thank you. Anyway, so my name is Deborah Francisco. I used to be the secretary for the North Hills West Neighborhood Council, which was a 24-hour, 70-a-week job, but I enjoyed it. And I loved what I did. And now I'm kind of participating in this group, and I can see that it will be a wonderful group. And I'm hoping with everybody together we'll have one voice and we'll be a loud voice. And thank you.
Okay, I'll go next. Hello, my name is Lisa Goldbaum, and I'm a 48-year resident of North Hills West. My journey this evening for this meeting started with a call to become a participant in a neighborhood council grievance panel, my introduction to neighborhood councils. Though the panel voted for a certain outcome, the then neighborhood council board did not take our advice. Welcome to the world of neighborhood councils and responsive local governance. I was elected to the board of North Hills West Neighborhood Council with a slate of 12 others in October of 2012, and I was the outreach chair and the second signatory. One of our slate's goals was to stop the development of Restaurant Depot, a commercial business in a residential neighborhood, and we did. Then our neighborhood council became muddled and disconnected. Splits developed, and with many requests, written and verbal, to the Department of Neighborhood the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, which is done, for help regarding bylaw violations, bullying, bad behavior, and sexism, nothing happened. So I, along with 4 other board members and several stakeholder committee members, resigned in September of 2013. Our issues for resigning were in the local newspapers and in City Watch. With concern and the help of Councilman Nuri Martinez, it became a topic for the City Council's Education and Neighborhood Committees, where they wanted to see action taken on these very issues. It has been a year now that the Board of Neighborhood Councils, which is BONC, has been hearing these issues and is still laboring on a plan. We will persevere until the issue is resolved. Needless to say, this has been an edifying and enlightening experience in how dysfunctional and slow moving change can be. I do not know what's happened to common sense. So here we are tonight to attempt to help and or change the culture of done and bonk. To do that, we all need to know how to produce correct Brown Act violation complaints, grievances, and so forth against neighborhood councils, and to have all of us educated to do that. We also need to inform our council members who find done and bonk unresponsive to wrongdoings, whether we write them or we call them. It will be a learning experience for all of us. We hope that together we can make a difference and make neighborhood councils function the way they were intended to when the charter was written. Otherwise, we should petition that the charter be changed and amended regarding neighborhood councils. We have to remind them the standards change and the rules have to change. The status quo is no longer acceptable. And this is a quote from a book that was written by the author and Nobel laureate S.Y. Agnon. He wrote, "The doubters and skeptics and all who are suspicious of things, they are the only people of truth, because they see the world as it is. They are unlike those who are happy with their lot in life, with their world, who as a result of their continuous happiness close their eyes from the truth."
My name is Margaret Shoemaker. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. I attended Monroe High School, just a few blocks from here. But for the last 38 years, I've lived in Arleta. I chaired the Arleta Neighborhood Council Formation Committee. I was a board member, and I also served as president. I have felt for a long time that we needed an advocacy group for stakeholders. I believe that the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment has not taken the neighborhood council system seriously from the very beginning. Complaints on Brown Act violations go ignored, bylaws are not followed, and stakeholders are not represented. At the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners meeting on September 2nd, I saw that other neighborhood councils share my frustration. I hope that this is the first of many more meetings and that together we can create change.
I'll go next. Hello everyone, my name is William Kuzman. My family moved to a home in Sepulveda on Woodley Hill near the Veterans Hospital in 1958, when Woodley Avenue was a 2-lane dirt road. I attended Mayo Elementary, Holmes Middle School, and in 1968, my family moved to Ridgecrest, where I attended high school and community college, receiving an A degree and then moving back to Northridge to attend the university. My work experiences include functioning as a logistics support engineer for the Tomahawk and Cruise missile systems. I owned and operated a medical aid service to retrofit homes to meet the needs of the physically disabled towards independent living. I spent 4 years teaching independent living skills to autistic adults for the J. Nolan Center in Newhall. In 1983, I began my current career as a realtor. There will be a bit more about me in tonight's presentation.
Good evening, my name is Diane Hand. I want to thank you all so much for coming this evening. We look forward to hearing your input and your opinions. As a community activist and long-time resident in Arleta, I'm concerned about taxpayer dollars that are being wasted within the Empower LA system. In my opinion, it's past time that neighbourhood councils were reminded of the reason that the charter was formed in the first place. They were charged with the responsibility of representing stakeholders within their neighbourhood council boundaries. Arleta Neighbourhood Council has lost sight of that duty, and as we go to other neighbourhood council meetings, it appears there are additional areas where this same thing is happening. Empower LA states that they are too short of manpower to do their job effectively. So is it our assignment to approach Mayor Garcetti, the City Council, City Attorney Fewer, and City Controller Galpern to encourage them to add more staff, but will we have an assurance that that will correct the problem? I'm hoping that we can all work together and restore the purpose of the neighbourhood councils and all of us get value for our tax dollars. Thank you.
I'm Mary Armenteros. I've been a resident of Northwest West for almost 30 years now. My first attempt to get involved in the neighborhood council was about 5 years ago. When I went in, I noticed it was somewhat discouraging because there was obviously some sort of problems going on with the board. There was some sort of turmoil, and so it was difficult to tell who the good guys or the bad guys were. I just left and didn't come back again. In August of 2012, I became aware of the Restaurant Depot's attempt to rezone an RA-run lot on Chase and Woodley to commercial and industrial. Many local residents were opposing this. I joined them and ended up running as a candidate for the Northwest West Neighborhood Council Board, along with a slate of other stakeholders. In September 2012, we won by a landslide, but none of us had any experience in being board members. We learned quickly through many training classes. I and 4 other members attended classes, went to meetings. I was elected treasurer because of my financial background, and found a great mentor who really was a tremendous assistance to me. Funding is a perplexity. Anyway, in September of 2013, I and 4 other female board members did resign due to extenuating circumstances. This is another story. Due to these circumstances in which we had no fault, the remaining board members placed under exhaustive measures prior to our resignations. They remained so for the following 5 or 6 months. I continued to stay involved in the neighborhood council as a stakeholder, attended many meetings from September 13th onward. Unfortunately, the remaining board was constantly not following the Brown Act or DUNS rules and regulations. I and several other stakeholders were constantly filing complaints against the board for continued violations. Some were resolved and corrected by DUN, others were not. Sometimes they seemed to be getting away with murder. This was extremely frustrating. Over time, I became aware of many other stakeholders and board members who were experiencing the same frustrations. We often spoke of forming some sort of a stakeholder watch group or advocacy group. Nothing came of it. until several of us attended the bond meeting of September 2nd, this last September, in Arleta. During public comments, numerous stakeholders and board members from throughout the city rose and spoke of the many different difficulties their neighborhood councils were having. It was a sobering moment. This went on for over an hour. As is customary, little or no response was given by any of the commissioners to those complaining. Several of us referred to this meeting as the bonk explosion. It was the catalyst that set our resolve in motion in the following days. By the end of the meeting, we were exchanging emails with the conviction that we must do something to find a solution to some of these problems we were all facing. Shortly after, we had a planning meeting to form a stakeholder group with the goal of helping each other and stakeholders that were of like mind. Within 5 days, we created the Stakeholders Empowerment and Enlightenment Coalition, SEEC, a website thanks to Deborah Francisco, webmaster extraordinaire and Wonder Woman of all administrative duties. We established a mission, a vision, our inaugural meeting, outline, and a meeting date. Our main objective and primary purpose was to seek change and reform within the neighborhood council system, as is stated in our mission and vision. We hope that you and many more stakeholders will join us in this worthy challenge. Thank you.
Who's going to read the mission and vision statement?
I don't have an iPad yet. I'm waiting. Christmas? I guess that's going to be me. Okay, everybody, here goes. Our mission: to empower stakeholders with the tools to enlighten and effect positive reform of the neighborhood council system, which was created by the Charter Amendment of the City of Los Angeles. To enlighten City Council as to the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment's failure to provide sufficient support, assistance, and oversight to the individual neighborhood councils in compliance with the goals and purposes as stated in the Neighborhood Council Plan Ordinance. Our vision: a City of Los Angeles neighborhood council system in which every stakeholder is encouraged and empowered to participate in the conduct of business of their neighborhood council and to demand that their respective board of directors represent the stakeholders in all related community matters. In addition, we envision that all neighborhood council boards operate in full compliance with all applicable laws, the Brown Act, California Public Records Act, neighborhood council bylaws, codes of civility, and Department of Neighborhood Empowerment resolutions, rules, regulations, and best practices guidelines with honesty, openness, and transparency. Thank you.
That's a wish. That is a wish.
Hi everyone, I'm William Kuzman. I'm going to be doing a presentation tonight on how the Brown Act interrelates with neighborhood councils and our right to freedom of speech. I did a narration on this presentation. I'm going to try and see if the speakers on my laptop are loud enough. The other speakers don't want to work with the system. If they don't, I will go ahead and do my best to present it live.
Is that good?
Mm-hmm.
Are we clear there? Okay, so we're good there? Okay.
try to do this with the timing that's already set up. We'll see how it goes. A quote, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed unless it is faced." I attended California State University, Northridge in the late 1970s. My majors were human factors of engineering and psychology. I learned how to engineer things to be compatible with human behaviors and perceptions. Today, it might be the same concept as making a program or website user-friendly. Our government processes and procedures need to be reformed so they too are user-friendly. I have a what? My involvement with the neighborhood councils began in February of 2013 when by accident I learned of a proposed land use change that the neighborhood council was keeping a secret. This was of grave concern. This is the first time I was aware a neighborhood council existed. I got involved. I complained to the neighborhood council for not informing stakeholders about the issue. My written and verbal complaints about the failures to communicate were made directly to the board at public meetings. They were dismissed or ignored. All complaints and grievances were filed against the neighborhood council for failure to complete ethics training along with Brown Act and bylaw violations. I'm here to share with you information I have garnered from my experiences. I will also present a real example of the successful Brown Act complaint against the board's failure to comply with Brown Act agenda posting laws. For educational purposes, the most simple, basic example was used, and there is no intent to single out or draw specific attention to the offending counsel. I am not an attorney, and nothing is to be considered legal advice. It's about the rules. Get back up there. It's about the rules. I am one of 6 siblings. A tradition at Christmas was a family present under the tree. It was usually a board game. In the evening, the family would play the new game. About the year 1964 was Milton Bradley's Game of Life. I sat at the table with all my brothers and sisters. We pulled out all the pieces and pulled the board out. Then my father, a mechanical engineer, read the rules out loud before the actual game started. As a 10-year-old, it seemed like an eternity to get through the reading of the rules so we could begin the game. When a dispute arose during the game, my father would stop, pick up the rules, find the one related to the dispute. The dispute was resolved, and the game continued. This life's example taught me the importance of reading rules and following instructions. When my family got a video recording machine in the 1980s, instead of asking my 7-year-old daughter to program the time clock, I read the instructions and did it myself. Though my father passed away 5 years ago, I still hear his voice. Did you read the instructions? Lesson learned, Dad. Thank you. Is any rule more important than another? No instruction, law, or rule is bigger or smaller in importance. If broken, then cheating has occurred and the outcome of the game is tainted. What are neighborhood councils? Neighborhood councils are considered advisory bodies only for the city. They do not make regulations or decisions on government issues. They give their recommendations to the city agencies. The neighborhood councils and their standing committees are considered legislative bodies for the Brown Act. The public's right to be informed of their actions and the free speech right to speak for or against a proposed action is protected, regulated, and governed by the California Open and Public Meetings Brown Act law. Neighborhood council plan goals. Neighborhood councils are falling far short of the goals and objectives set forth by the Neighborhood Council Plan ordinance. Quotes from the plan. Whereas the goals and objectives of the neighborhood council system are to promote public participation in city governance and decision-making processes, foster a sense of community for all people to express ideas and opinions about their neighborhoods and their government. Sadly, too many board members think because they are elected, they do not have to make any effort to reach out and inform and educate the stakeholders of their official activities. Also, they fail to reach out and engage public opinion. Simply stated, they fail to seek out the diverse opinions of the stakeholders to encourage lively debate. What can the public do? Take action to ensure neighborhood councils are playing by the rules by filing a legitimate, effective complaints. There are many rules and laws with many facets. For outreach and communication, the most basic of Brown Act laws are the agenda posting requirements and the free speech right to public comment. Also, the public's right to criticize any legislative body's action without fear of retribution. File a Brown Act complaint. Prior to filing a lawsuit to challenge an alleged Brown Act violation, the complaining party must make a written demand on the legislative body to cure or correct the alleged violation. The written demand must be made within 90 days after the challenged action was taken in open session, unless the violation involves the agenda requirements under Section 54954.2, in which case the written demand must be made within 30 days. The legislative body is required to cure or correct the challenged action and inform the party who filed the demand of its corrected actions or its decision not to cure or correct within 30 days. A suit must be filed by the complaining party within 15 days after the receipt of the written notice from the legislative body, or if there is no written response, within 15 days after the 30-day cure period expires. Become familiar with the text of the Brown Act, revised in 2013. Gather the evidence, copy of the agenda, video or audio recording of the meetings if applicable, photographic evidence showing failure to physically post an agenda within posting timeframes, computer screenshots of documents showing the creation date of metatags, photographic evidence. If there is no agenda posted prior to the 72 hours, 24 hours for special meetings, then take a photograph of the seller's smartphone showing the missing agenda at the posting location. The photo contains a digital date and timestamp. Return and repeat each day until the agenda is posted, so the photos provide an accurate record and establish a window on the time period when the agenda was posted. If there are emails or other public documentation related to the complaint, you are entitled to receive a copy of those documents by making a formal request of the board. It must state the request is being made per the Public Information Act. The problem is they can delay delivery as much as 45 days before being in violation of the time frames for providing the public documents. They may also charge a fee to produce copies of the requested documents. Reference to the request for supporting documents in the complaint and attach a copy of that request. Send the complaint to the Los Angeles County District Attorney, Department of Public Integrity, Pete Wilkinson at da.lacounty.gov. Send it to the Offending Neighborhood Council Board as a formal complaint. Send it to the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and seek support at lacity.org. If there is a Brown Act violation, they probably failed to meet the minimum Department of Neighborhood Empowerment resolution agenda posting requirements too. Add these alleged violations to the complaint as violations of the Neighborhood Council bylaws and department regulations. Why complain to the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment? A Brown Act violation is also a Neighborhood Council bylaw violation. The District Attorney, Department of Public Integrity may not reply for many months. If the purpose of the complaint relates to nullifying a motion to spend public funds, it will be too late to reverse the decision. Since the City Attorney would prefer not to face a lawsuit or have any board convicted of a Brown Act violation, they may take action to stop the expenditure until the violations are cured. This will also confirm the complainant did everything possible to get resolution without filing a lawsuit. Common Neighborhood Council Brown Act violations: failure to comply with agenda posting requirements, failure to take public comment, censure of public comment, failure to report roll call votes, serial meetings. These probably happen all the time, but proof is near impossible to obtain. If a committee has 5 members, a quorum is 3, and a majority is 2. Therefore, if 2 members of a committee meet and come to a consensus on a topic, it is a serial meeting. Failure to provide the procedure for meeting interpreters and/or American Disability Act requirements. Discussion of items not on the agenda by the board. Insufficient description of agenda items. Failure to provide supporting documentation mentioned in the agenda items. Use of undefined acronyms. Failure to comply with Brown Act requests for certain documents by the public. The Brown Act requires written material distributed to a majority of the body by any person to be provided to the public without delay. The remedies. There are both civil remedies and criminal and misdemeanor penalties for Brown Act violations. The civil remedies include injunctions against further violations, orders nullifying unlawful action, and orders determining the validity of any rule to penalize or discourage the expression of a member of the legislative body. A member of the legislative body will not be criminally liable for a violation of the Brown Act unless the member intends to deprive the public of information to which the member knows or has reason to know the public is entitled under the Brown Act. A real sample Brown Act complaint in response. A neighborhood council failed to post its meeting agenda 72 hours in advance. There is no malice or intent to target the neighborhood council that the complaint was filed against. This example is for educational and enlightenment purposes only. The complaint, October 28, 2013, to the District Attorney's Office, Department of Public Integrity. From William Kuzman, Granada Hills stakeholder. Subject, complaint against the Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council Board of Directors. Violation, failure to post general meeting agenda in compliance with the Brown Act that states the agenda must be posted 72 hours before the meeting. Last month, on September 30th, I attended the Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council to request time to present a concern to the Planning and Land Use Committee about the floor area ratio restrictions which appear not to be in compliance with the current municipal codes. I was told they would be glad to hear my presentation, and the chairman came over and got my business card and said he would contact me. I didn't hear from him. So on October 17th, I sent an email asking if I was scheduled to present to the BLU meeting on October 21st. He told me I was not scheduled because I never asked to be scheduled. Then he told me the meeting had been canceled. Needless to say, I was not happy about this behavior. So now I have to go and complain to another NC about their failure to communicate to the stakeholders. I'm on the Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council email list, and there was no email to the stakeholders that the meeting was canceled. On Friday, October 25th, I kept waiting for the Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council to post their general meeting agenda. By 6:33 p.m., it was not posted on the website, Exhibit A. I drove to the Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council office on Woodley Avenue and took a picture of the storefront. No agenda had been posted, Exhibit B. Just a newsletter was posted, Exhibit C. Then, sometime on October 26th, the agenda was posted to the Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council website, Exhibit B, with a creation time of 8:25 p.m. and a modification time on October 26th at 7:40 a.m. The evidence proves the meeting agenda was not posted in compliance with the Brown Act. Please take the appropriate action. Sincerely, William Kuzman. This is Exhibit A. This is a copy of the website for the Neighborhood Council. And if you look at in the top left, and it's not real clear, it's not real clear. I don't know if I can do that or not. No, that doesn't work. But where the meetings are, you can see the only meeting there posted is the September meeting. And this was, of course, a screenshot taken after 6:30 p.m., 72 hours before the meeting. And this is the evidence that shows that the agenda wasn't posted on the website. That's the done violation. Here's a copy of the Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council office. And over on the right side, you see on the window it says agendas. And then to the right of that, there is something posted. And this is a picture of what you see posted in the window, showing that it wasn't the agenda for the meeting, in case there was any question. And then when the agenda finally got posted, I downloaded it. And you download it to your Adobe Acrobat. You right-click on it for the document properties. And that little window shows up. And on that window, it tells you when that document was created, who it was created by, and when it was modified. So if the creation date on that document is anything past the start time, it's no good. So the DA's response to my complaint, May 9, 2014. RE alleged Brown Act violations. Now, look at this, May 9th, I filed that complaint back in October. Our office has received complaints of possible violations of the Brown Act by the Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council. From our review, it appears that one violation has occurred, as explained below. The violation relates to the timeliness of posting an agenda for the October 28, 2013 meeting. The complainant provided evidence that the physical posting for this meeting was not present 72 hours in advance of the meeting. Government Code 54954.2A1 requires that agendas be posted at least 72 hours before a meeting in a location that is freely accessible to the public. These requirements apply to the Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council Board, Government Code 54952. It is essential that every member of the legislative body understand that the Brown Act works to foster public confidence in the decision-making process by ensuring advance notice of meetings, public presence, and input at those meetings. The Brown Act assists legislative bodies by ensuring that the public's rights are balanced with the agency's obligation in best serving the public's interest. Ultimately, compliance with the letter and the spirit of the Brown Act, and it says ENS, and I have no idea what they meant by that. I imagine what they're trying to say, just, follow the rules. It is our hope that the board will take initiative to post agendas in a timely manner to avoid the necessity of formal enforcement. Please contact us should you have any questions. Very truly yours, Jackie Lacey. Conclusion. Get involved. Be proactive for positive change. Assert public right to free speech. Visit http://Seec-Reform.com and sign up to receive emails for all future meetings. This presentation and future practical guides will be uploaded and available on the website. Thank you all for coming and listening.
I'm sorry about that.
Well, have any of you been involved in filing a complaint and having it answered or not answered?
Why are you not having an answer?
Okay, and did you pursue your complaint? Or you did? And
I pursued it. I gave a copy of Bob at the September 2nd meeting. Still nothing has been done.
Well, hopefully, when you go to the website, you will be able to follow Mr. Koopman's example. And just, I guess the answer is you have to be very persistent.
Well, I did take pictures of the not posted.
Well, it's a learning curve for all of us, but we're so dissatisfied by the just not hearing our voice. Basically, that's what it is. They do not want to hear our voice. We are like a thorn in their side.
Can I just ask one question though? What did everybody think about the presentation? Was it informative?
Yeah.
Did you pick up some information from that? Okay.
Some people filled out speaker cards. Joy, is it Bizarre?
I just spoke.
Oh, Joy. Okay, thank you, Joy. Okay.
So Joy, can I respond to Joy?
Yes, absolutely.
Joy, you mentioned that you didn't take the picture of the website posting.
A couple of things have come up with the DUN regulation requirements. The boards, if they chose to go with the one physical posting location and the website posting, they need to name their primary posting location. So it's important, if they're still using the 5 locations, which they have the option to do, is to ask the board, what is your primary location? And when it comes to filing a complaint, the onus of proof is on us to prove that they failed. The board members aren't taking a picture of that agenda when they're posting it at the site. But they don't have to provide proof. The assumption is they did what they did. It's our duty to provide the proof that they didn't perform. So again, it's just, you have to go through certain roads.
What if you have more than one person observing that it isn't posted?
Well, I suppose a signed witness statement would be just as valid as a photograph. But in the real world of the legalities, a photograph is indisputable. And that's basically what happened in the complaint. No agenda there. The DA didn't have a choice but to say that they violated the route.
Ruben Garcia?
That would be me.
Ruben?
Oh. So I'm really glad, unfortunately some of the members from my neighborhood council came in late and didn't hear your presentation at the beginning. So I'll reiterate a little bit of our experience with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. Tomorrow at our general meeting, the board will be asked to take a vote of no confidence against Gracie Liu and the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment for the following reasons. Consistently losing paperwork, consistently mismanaging our funding requests where the stakeholders in the community that we are appointed to serve as elected or appointed individuals to the board we failed them. And the reason we failed them is because Dunn failed us. If there's an error on a demand warrant, which we don't use the word demand warrant anymore according to them, they don't tell you what the error is. They wait 2 or 3 months. They send it back as rejected and figure out why it was rejected. Why don't they call us and tell us what the error was so we can fix it so it gets funded and we don't go through those hoops and those people that we collaborated with are not waiting for the collaboration that's never going to come. Okay, so with that being said, I made over 50 phone calls at the request of Leila Campos. I'm sure you all know who Leila Campos is. To speak to Gracie Dunn. She said she'll be back from vacation July 15th. Over 50 calls to that lady, and I got the runaround from her staff. She's not in, she'll be in later, she'll call you back. She's the only one who can make an appointment with herself, even though it was her executive secretary. But she'll call you by the end of the week to make that appointment. She never called. Once they got wind that our agenda has a vote of no confidence for Gracie Liu and the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, magically, guess who shows up at an executive meeting last week? Fortunately, I was not there. Gracie Liu showed up. That's magic, amazing. Now, Gracie Liu came to defend herself, and that's great, because as Americans, we're all entitled to defend ourselves. If we're accused of something, we all have the right to defend ourselves. But we're not always innocent. Okay? Not all these people who defend themselves are innocent. It's nothing but mismanagement, chaos, lies, and corruption down at the Neighborhood Empowerment. And if we do not unite as a group, because the squeakier wheel gets the oil, we are going to continue failing those neighborhoods that we serve and the collaborations that we have. I find it amazing that they are paying big dollars. She is very well paid, including the Dunn representatives that come to our meeting. Very well paid. By the way, we might get a Dunn representative at our meeting maybe once every 4 months, if that. They don't help us. It is my true belief that the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment has been there to oversee the failure of our neighborhood council, the Pacoima neighborhood council. I can only speak for ours. I don't know what goes on in yours. But time and time again, they have failed us in our funding. Last year, our entire budget, we lost $20,000 back to the general fund out of 37. So $17,000 was spent, 20 went back. When we submitted a neighborhood purpose grant, we submitted projects to get paid with that old money. It was all fine and dandy until what they call the system shutdown, the deadline. Even up to 4 o'clock that afternoon, I spoke to them. Your paperwork looks perfect. Perfect. It'll be funded out of the old fund money. 6 p.m. when everyone has gone home, I get an email from them. Denied, denied, denied. We don't fund something in the future. That has never been the case. So I'll ask you, neighborhood council members, if you fund a National Night Out event, how will that ever be funded now? If the beginning of the budget year is July 1, National Night Out is the first Tuesday in August, you don't even have 30 days to get something going. So I assume neighborhood councils will never fund another national night out, because it would be impossible. Now, it's always been my thought that the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment was there to guide us, lead us in the right direction, help us with issues, to make sure we're doing the right thing. That is not the case. The case is they let you fail, and then they don't tell you you failed. And then the funding that you did for these stakeholders, I have the Pacoima Senior Center, the Alicia Brawley's Duncan. No money for them. And we look like total fools. The Boys and Girls Club, we sponsored to buy them some equipment for no money, it was denied. LAPD Jeopardy program. It looked perfect. She even spoke to the captain on the phone while I sat with her. It's all in order. It was denied. Los Angeles City Fire Department for equipment. She says, oh, you're missing a signature. Wait till tomorrow at our general meeting, because I have the picture. There is 2 signatures on there. There's nothing missing. It's another lie. The boys and girls, we have a swim team at Hubert Humphrey Park. Denied. And they don't tell you. They just later on, or you got to go to the tracker, and the tracker says denied. Unfortunately, that department is mismanaged. And now they get to keep all the money that we don't spend. So why wouldn't they want us to fail? Why would they not want us to fail? They get to keep it all. I mean, if I was there, I would want you all to fail too, so I can keep all your money. It's not brain scientists here, it's real easy. That is why that department is such in shambles. There's a lot of great people in this room, but that doesn't mean you all will make a great brain surgeon. You won't. Gracie Lou is a great lady, but she is a very bad department manager. And she needs to go, and so does some of that staff, and they need to be retrained, reevaluated how they do business, and maybe reorganized in 100%. Because it is totally out of control of them. And we are not paid. We're volunteers. They are paid handsomely, a big taxpayer salary. Most of us don't even make close to what they make. They are paid very, very well. So, just if anyone's interested, we're having a vote of no confidence tomorrow for appointment in Neighborhood Council, Glen Oaks and Van Nuys. Anyone interested? Because she came and tried to sway someone to vote. I've already heard, but you can't sway the facts. Facts are what they are. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to try not to do back and forth discussion just yet. We're going to try to get to the speaker comments first.
Brian Ralph.
Hey, I'm Brian Graff. I escaped from Northwest, North of the G's. I'm a stakeholder. I just mostly came here because William invited me. I see William at the meetings. I see William talking about the things that are being done wrong in the meetings. He said to me, hey Brian, come to my meeting. So I'm here. I want to talk briefly two things. One important thing that William probably skipped in his presentation about postings of the agendas. If you go to the posting agenda or you go to a physical location, you have to post your agenda in a place that's accessible to the public and where the agenda is visible to the public 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's an important thing you need to remember when you post. I also have a cynical view on the funding. Mr. Guzman here talks about it. My cynical view is the city does a good job about talking about giving every neighborhood council money, but this is kind of like the expensive toy that you want at the store. You see it, and every time you're there, the price goes up, and it gets higher and higher up on the shelf, and you can't reach it. So I look at the way they're doing the funding. They talk about it, but every time they give you the funding, they make you jump through more flaming hoops to actually get the funding. And then, like he says, they don't know what they're doing on terms of if they had good people, they'd be there. I read their propaganda. And just to tell you, about how disillusioned their staff is. I'm going to make a political comment. I read that on there, one of the guys who worked at their office doing something for a number of years was leaving their office to become a middle school teacher for LA Unified. My political comment is that guy must have had a really terrible job there and had a bad time if he was going to be in middle school for LA Unified. So that's my remark.
Glenn Bailey.
No, I can wait for this going.
Okay, thank you.
Glenn, can I ask you, can't you speak about the new
No, I guess we can do it after.
All right.
Lois, is it Laxton?
Laxton, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to reiterate part of what Ruben said. That money does go back to them now. That's in a private sector business, that's a major conflict of interest. You know, if I'm the buyer and I purchase and then I'm getting free this stuff delivered to my home, it's the same type of thing. And no private sector business shuts down their whole accounting issues to close year end. Business continues. You can put deadlines, but business continues. You don't stop everything, it continues on. And they stop everything. Therefore, National Nights Out, they can't be funded because they can't open up on time because they can't get it done. Complaints get put in drawers and found out, after everybody complained 6 months later, they go search the person's desk and there's complaints that were filed but never answered. And it's just that. And what do? They transfer that person. There's no discipline. They're transferred. This just isn't how it should be. And this was thrown at us because we wanted to succeed from the city of LA. And it's worse than ever. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
John Wiggins?
Just a couple of things. First off, I'm glad to see this organization getting started. Anything that brings the stakeholders together and actually mobilizes them for concrete positive action, in my book, is good. I'm a member of the Market East Neighborhood Council Board for 10 years. I was there at its inception, chaired the initial bylaws, and so on. And I've been sitting there, it's been, by some standards, really quiet. We haven't had any major battles and things like that. A lot of disagreements, of course, as usual. But the thing that has really impressed on me is that we sit there and do our work, and we're looking at 20, 30 people maybe. Every now and then we get an issue, like a land use issue where people really exercise, and we fill the room, and that's really development. So it's hard to represent a neighborhood of 20,000 people when maybe a couple hundred know of your existence. So one of the things I would like to recommend you to take on as an action is to increase awareness of the system. Both of them in the bank. And think about the promise of it too. 10 years on, I said that it would probably take 10 to 15 years for the neighborhood council system to get us good and really just work like that. Around the 10-year point now. I think we're making progress. And this is not to invalidate any of the complaints you've done. You're absolutely right. Things are bad and they need to be changed. There are things that are bad and need to be changed. There are good things that are happening as well. And again, I hope you take that positive, as you mentioned in your statements, to be an important thing to actually shore up what's good, point out what's bad, and help to correct it. It's an important factor here. Another suggestion, basically, going back to the business of participation, I think one of the major things that go through a lot of these skills that happens is that you really get democracy working. The councils, I forgot who was characterized the councils as an experiment in participatory democracy. And that's what it is, but if people don't participate, the experience doesn't fit. So, again, bring in the participation, make yourselves a force for getting people involved. Does this mean sitting in the board meetings so much? To me, I think the real strength of the council would be in the committees, including the good system of committees where people participate in all the things that really, that really energize them and make things happen that way. There are some suggestion. Put together a team, make an appointment, go down, visit, meet the people.
I've been there over 100
No,
times.
no, not just to go and make the plans, things like that, but actually take the tour, find out who they are, how they're organized, what they do, look at their budget. And look at their limitations, what the strengths are. Then you can be more informed in terms of the kinds of decisions you make. Here's things that you can do and you're not doing within your budget without having to spend more money. Here's other things where you really need more resources to help. And also speaking of resources to help, one of the things is, are they actually leveraging the people, the motivated and involved people in the neighborhood council system? Not us, help run ourselves. And there are things that we do, like the Valley Alliance of Neighborhood Councils. I hope you all attended meetings of the Valley Alliance of Neighborhood Councils. 34 councils in the Valley. They're pretty well represented at the monthly meetings there. And people really agree with this argument and compare notes and help each other out. It's a very good forum for neighborhoods. And again, like you said, and that's the clear thing I have in the comment. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Don.
Yes, ma'am. Can you put me last again?
Glenn, would you like to speak?
So I just made a few notes based on what was said, so I kind of grouped them into 3 different areas. First of all, I think that every neighborhood council or group of neighborhood councils does need stakeholder watchdogs, for lack of a better word. I'm aware that there are several of those out there, and the reason that's good is, number one, keep the neighborhood councils on their toes, but also it's important because maybe there's an issue on the agenda that folks can know there's another group out there in the community, notify them. Watching the agendas is important. The staff assigned from the department, the NEAs, Neighborhood Empowerment Analysts, there's 6 of them, but only 5 of them are on duty because one of them's on leave. So that would normally mean they've got, like, for the North Valley, there's 17 neighborhood councils. For the South Valley, there's 17 neighborhood councils, and there's an NEA assigned to each of them. What that means is virtually every night, there's at least 1 or 2 board meetings. There's multiple agendas. Last week in ENS, there were 100 agendas that were posted citywide. So that's a lot of agendas to keep it kind of. My point is that in order to complement what they're able to do, because there's only so many hours a day, and they spend time with me, not on the agendas, that all of us need to be those eyes and ears too. So on the Brown Act, in addition to the comments of the physical posting and the website postings, I want to stress how important it is to also make sure that all your board and committee agendas are sent to ENS, to NC Support, who then post it on an early notification system for the city of LA. And more important, well, that's very important, equally important, is for you and all of your stakeholders to sign up to subscribe to early notification service, because that's the only way you're going to know that those agendas are being distributed in a timely manner. Not just that they've been sent in by the neighborhood council, but also that the department is posting them promptly, because that's been a recent issue too. Not just posted promptly, but also accurately. Just today I saw that there was an agenda that was actually for one neighborhood council that was labeled for a different neighborhood council and the subtitle for a different neighborhood council. So I mean, but nobody would know that unless they're subscribed to that and then immediately, as soon as you see that, email NC Support and, hey, you made an error. Be more careful in the future. Be nice about it, but let them know you made an error, because that's going to affect certain people. I get the agendas for every neighborhood council in the city. There's 12 neighborhood councils that are not posting, maybe it's down to 10 now, but they're not posting they're not saying to NC Support, they're not getting it distributed out there. 10 out of the 95. The posting requirement to NC Support was put into place in August of 2010. It was recently amended in May of this year and then revised in August. If you want to have a conversation about it, you have to do that, but I want to finish my list before we get into that. And it's an important tool. I really wanted to use it during the election cycle because I wanted to know when a board was meeting, because sometimes they're not meeting in the same locations. Maybe they have special meetings. I wanted to know where the election committees are meeting or when their executive committees were meeting, because we want to make sure that the IEAs was able to get to those particular meetings, and sometimes, that was the only way to find out. If it wasn't on the website, it wasn't you sign up for email blasts, you don't always get them, and there are some neighborhood councils that are not so good about that. Just moving down to committee meetings, because a lot of the work is done in committees, that's real important that those are also posted on ENS, and that if you subscribe that you get those. There's also been an issue about whether committees doing minutes and noting the attendance of who's the committee members and their voting. And it may not be a legal requirement. I think the best practice to include that, at least the action that was taken, who was there, who voted, besides what the vote was, because then you know what you're dealing with. You come to the full board as far as the recommendation. Switching over to funding, if I may. Okay. So the new checking account was, it's a long time in coming. It's been over a year since it was rolled out in June of 2013. We actually didn't start getting the checking accounts until July, some into August for this fiscal year. If it works as promised, there won't be this cutoff time because the money is there in the account. In the past, the reason that there were these deadlines is that the staff had to process the demand warrants and had to process the neighborhood purpose grants, and the controller set a time when they basically shut off the money to the department. And so there was this series of deadlines. With the checking account, that money stays in your account all the way through. There will be a cutoff on June 30th that we have to say, hey, this is how much is left on that day. But it's been stated that we'll have access to it. So the problems that we've all experienced in the past, hopefully, if we survive all the documentation and paperwork requirements, hopefully, we won't have those basically 2+ out of the months out of the year not being able to fully use our money. I do want to throw out one idea that came up. I served on the plan review committee that was established a year and a half ago. There was 3 of them citywide, and there were 15, I think, for each of the 3 areas. We met individually, and then we collectively got together and made recommendations. And the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners has considered some of those recommendations. Some have moved forward, some are stuck. One of those recommendations is the issue of rollover money. So for those neighborhood councils, for whatever reason, haven't spent all of their money for a fiscal year, the suggestion is some portion of that money, and my suggestion right now is 50%, so that would be $18,500, be allowed to roll over to the next fiscal year for your use by your neighborhood council. It may be because you have a large expensive project and you need more than $37,000 or more than that portion of $37,000 that you don't need for operating. But that recommendation is still pending before the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners. The City Council will not want to do it because in the past they've helped balance their budget by for this fiscal year, it's $580,000 that neighborhood councils did not spend, and that it was basically, we'll talk about what happens to that. The other thing was regarding grievances. So there was a motion adopted by City Council on December 3rd, I believe, maybe it's 4th, of 2013, that basically set up regional grievance panels because they knew that the department was being swamped by grievances, they weren't being addressed. The other challenge is that board members aren't allowed to file a grievance against their board. But, many times the people who know best what's going wrong are board members, but you're not allowed to file a grievance. But stakeholders can, and that board members can file a complaint. Anyway, it's very complicated and it wasn't working well. So City Council voted on a recommendation put forward by the Plan Review Committee and the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners to prepare an ordinance to establish a regional governance account and to bring back funding for their staffing it within the department. As part of that motion, they said to bring back the ordinance for implementation by July 1 of 2014. The city attorney has not drafted that ordinance. It doesn't exist. It has not been filed. So the only blame, you can't blame Bonk, you can't blame city council. It's strictly and solely on city attorney. I'm going to give you the council file. I mean, you can look it up yourself. And for those of you who are on neighborhood councils, you might want to have your neighborhood council take a position or write to the city attorney and saying, why are you in violation of what the city council voted on, which was to bring back an ordinance and get it in place by July 1. It's council file 11-1018. 11-1018. And you can get that on the city's website. And the last thing I want to say is that the Valley Alliance of Neighborhood Councils was mentioned before. While there are 34 neighborhood councils in the Valley, there's typically only about 25 of them who show up at the monthly meetings. So what that means is 9 or 10 of the neighborhood councils aren't sending a representative to Valley Alliance. They're not hearing what their fellow neighborhood councils are concerned about, and they're not contributing to that discussion. And they're not hearing the solutions that are suggested. We've had city attorney there. We generally always have the general manager's department there. So I would say to those 9 or 10 neighborhood councils that are not participating with the Valley Alliance, shame on you. Because that's an opportunity where these high-ranking people are there, and we need the support of all 34 in the Valley to help solve some of these solutions. And the bank also has a Valley Resource Board, which are people who are knowledgeable and experienced in different areas. It could be parliamentary procedure, it could be Brown Act, it could be how to run a meeting. But whatever the issue is that the neighborhood council, that you feel the neighborhood council is dealing with, whether you're on the board or not on the board, you can contact the Valley Alliance. We could see if we could help. We can't always help in all instances, but sometimes what happens is that people will go to the meeting, just like you go to the meetings, and just sit and listen and see what's going on, and maybe give advice to the president or to the whole board about our observations. So I know it's not done well, but thank you.
Thank you. But you know what, I'm Lynn, all those things.
Anita, let's just go on this speakers and do discussion when we're done.
I'm going to talk to you as a stakeholder, not as the reporter for City Watch. Okay, I'm putting on my activist hat and taking off my journalist hat, even though there'll be an article on this in Thursday night City Watch. Are you good?
Don't interrupt the comment.
I've been writing now for a little over a year, and we've developed a lot of readers from all over. In fact, it surprises me sometimes when we get from out of state, because really City Watch covers mostly things about Los Angeles. And I think you're missing something here. The charter, and unfortunately I have to become much too familiar with it because of my other job, says that the main reason for neighborhood councils is to bring the government closer to the stakeholders and to take the stakeholders' opinions to the government. And most of the complaints that I hear are not ideas, they are policy. We're going to have a grievance committee, the Brown Act. Well, I think the Brown Act, Bernard Parks, who is the councilman and chair of the neighborhood, said to me in an interview, he said, I don't understand why the neighborhood councils go under the Brown Act. He said, why don't they have the Sunshine Act? He said, because the councilmen break the rules every day. We've got 2 people on staff who talk to somebody else, And I'll give you a perfect example. North Valley, your terrific block commissioner, Lydia Grant, was calling a meeting of the North Valley neighborhood councils, all 17, at town hall. And if she wanted to talk to people about what was going on, let everybody get a chance to meet each other, and, there's strength in numbers. Politicians pay attention to numbers, let's face it. I mean, if you say, I represent me, they say, that's nice. If you go in and say, I represent 300,000 people, all of a sudden they offer you a cup of coffee. she had to cancel it because the city attorney, who I have become more than familiar with, said that if 2 or more people from a particular board, in Granada Hills, attended the town hall that she was doing, and their quorum on your board was like, 3 people or 7 people, or it was a serial meeting, even though they weren't going to vote on anything. There was no money involved. There wasn't any funding involved. And he made it cancel it. Okay, so that's because the Brown Act. And I just got something from him this morning. As you know, how many of you are going to Congress on Saturday? Okay, well, for those of you that aren't going to Congress, and I would suggest the gentleman from Van Nuys, because I also heard you at the Bonk meeting. Okay, I suggest you go because there's a lot of really good information. It's free, you get breakfast, you get lunch, you get to park in the City Hall parking lot free, which is always exciting. And you get a chance to meet people from all over the city. And the information is invaluable. But the neighborhood councils, if you spend all of your time, I don't understand, I think your idea for an alliance, as an alliance. Now, the alliances do not go into the Brown Act. So, if you were, as an example, and I'm just throwing it out, if you were to have an alliance of stakeholders, and you get them from all over the city, and I think that would be really helpful because some boards, all they do is they do their own thing and they have their own fiefdoms, and there's some groups in neighborhood councils who don't like change and they don't want to do anything. So if you get more participation, it's perfect. But if you're going to go under the Brown Act, you're going to have the same kind of rules. And it's ridiculous. And also, I think that you've got to look at it not just as policies. Yes, they're going to have a grievance procedure. Yes, probably the election rules will be the same for everybody instead of having, 95 different things because it's ridiculous. These things are taking time. As Glenn said, by the way, Gracie, when she got back from vacation, the first day she was going back to the office, her car was totaled. And she was in the hospital, and then she was out for 2 weeks, and she's still having problems with her back, etc. So it wasn't that she was ignoring you, it was that she was incapacitated.
Please no. Please no. Let her finish.
If she was
That's not an excuse.
I'm sorry, sir. Please let the woman finish. Sir, you are out of order.
Answer phone calls.
Sir.
Over 50 phone calls were ignored.
Okay, that's all right.
Please.
No.
We are trying to run this meeting in a way that is fair and equal to everyone. She is entitled. I did not interrupt. Sir, you were not interrupted by her. It is unfair of you to interrupt her. Let her finish her speech. We will have time for open discussion. You can make comments back and forth.
Gracie moved without an answer.
I'm sorry. Let her finish. It's the right thing to do.
Real easy.
Go ahead.
I'm sure she would have preferred to call you back and have the accident. The NEAs, as Glenn mentioned, are not under Gracie's hiring capacity. She inherited them. When Long, the other general director, left, she had these people, and they filed a suit against one of the groups in the neighborhood council, C4C, which was the group that went out and helped the neighborhood council with problems, filed a union complaint because they said that the volunteers were taking away from the union's job. Now, as Glenn said to you, there were 100 meetings. How can 5 people possibly go to 100 agendas in a month? I mean, it's ridiculous. They never get any work done. I'm sorry, no week. You never get any work done. So the money.
Folks, let her finish. And please,
so the money that's,
please wrap it up.
Yes, it used to be that the money that was left over from the neighborhood councils went to the general fund. And I don't know, Glenn would know better than I if it was passed or not, but it's been asked that the money come back to the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment so they can hire a public relations type person to help everybody with their outreach events. Because outreach, and by the way, neighborhood grants is not outreach. That's the lazy way of working with your community. You are not the ATM machine. You should be having events and partnering, and there's a workshop on that on Saturday, and I have one with 2 professionals that are going to teach you how to do events on a shoestring budget. So please come on Saturday. But the money will be used to help because they can't do everything. You've got, it used to be 40 people in that department, and now it's down to, I don't know, 17 or 20 or something like that, which is very difficult for 95 different problems. So that is my,
Thank you.
as I said, it's my
Thank
activist hat.
you. We have one more speaker, and then we already have
Do you want to
open.
speak again? Can you
Yeah,
run
we
that quickly,
have
please,
one.
only because we are time frame limited.
Yeah.
You want me to speak now?
Well, yes, please,
Yes,
yes,
please.
yes, yours is the last part of that.
I'm listening to all of this, and the one thing that it says to my mind is there's a complete lack of communication between the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and how many people knew that Gracie Lou was injured. I didn't. We're not finding out the things we're supposed to know. We're unaware of what the rules are. We've contacted an neighborhood council. We've contacted the attorney. We've contacted all of the people we're supposed to contact. We've gone to the alliance at different points. But we seem to have a breakdown in communication everywhere we go. No one is listening. Now, I was originally in the original training class for the Valley that took place at the Mission Hospital. It wasn't like that then. Gracie Lou and all the different people wanted to listen to us. They wanted our input. That doesn't happen now. So the whole original intent it's gone, it's disappeared, and there's lack of communication. We need to have better communication. And apparently there aren't enough people to help us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was it.
All right, I'm gonna start with just a general comment. We're gonna try and have about 5 minutes of open discussion where if you just raise your hand, we'll call on you if you have something to say, if it's even in response to another speaker. I want to thank all the stakeholders attending the meeting tonight. I want to thank the neighborhood council board members that showed up too, that you cared enough about what the stakeholders think to be here. When I wanted to make what was going wrong with the neighborhood councils a public issue, I went straight to the media first. And the response I got from the media was, Mr. Kuzman, we have sympathy for your concern, but we cannot explain it in 10 minutes. And therefore, the only way you will get any attention is to file a lawsuit. Well, you need to understand, I've been in 2 physical fights in my life, one when I was 8 and one when I was 12. I'm not a violent person. I don't like confrontation. I don't like the things I've had to do for the last year and a half. It's not my personality. It's really not. But because my property rights have been threatened by the failure of the neighborhood councils to comply with the goals set forth in the neighborhood council plan, I decided to do whatever I could to effect some change so that the neighborhood councils would fulfill those goals. Now, they said file a lawsuit. I don't have those resources. I don't really think it's the right thing to do. I don't think giving money to an attorney is going to benefit anybody in the system. You know, the people from the Hollywood plan can tell you about that. What I've identified as the major problem, it's not the neighborhood council's fault. that they're not following the rules. It's Dunn's failure to supervise and provide the training. But it's not Dunn's fault that they're not doing their job. We need to take the issue right to the heart, to the core of the neighborhood council plan. It says the city of Los Angeles is responsible for providing the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment with all the resources and the funds they need to have to provide training and oversight to the neighborhood councils. Now, we know we have budget crunches, and we know that the neighborhood council and Dunn has been cut to the bone. And that's why the neighborhood council system is failing. But it's not Dunn's fault, and it's not the neighborhood council's fault. It's the city council's fault for not fulfilling the goal. So the only way to get them to stand up and notice is as a group of stakeholders, we file so many complaints and let them know that the rules are so badly being broken left and right every single meeting that occurs, then maybe they will get that funding back and get programs in and get our grievance procedure in so we can move ahead. Margaret.
Yes, I've heard a lot of excuses made for the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and Tracy Lou. But I want to say that it's not just what they don't do, because being understaffed, I get that. It's not just what they don't do, it's what they do. The very first meeting of the Arleta Neighborhood Council, the Dunn rep said, you don't have to follow your bylaws. Several years ago, we were in exhaustive efforts in Arleta, and there was a Brown Act violation filed. The president would not allow stakeholders to be present during discussion and deliberation at a standing committee. There was a complaint filed. I went to Gracie Lou. I said, what happened with that complaint? We're not going to revisit the past. It was a month ago. Okay? This has been going on and on. I've seen, more recently, I've seen a Dunn rep at a meeting tell a board member that was supposed to recuse herself because she was nearby the issue. And as she's leaving, our Dunn rep stops her and says, you're a stakeholder, aren't you? You can speak to the stakeholders. Don't think so. These have been going on and on. These are just a few examples. So it's not just what they don't do, it's what they do. And they don't need a lot of staff to do it right when they do come out. I've also seen our Dunn rep tell the board how to get around the Brown Act. If a stakeholder doesn't want something on the agenda and you don't want to put it on, tell them there's no room. I mean, things like that have been going on and on for the past 12 years that I've been involved. And it needs to stop. It's not lack of people. It is also that they don't care. They don't care that the rules. I told Gracie Lou 5 years ago, I don't have a neighborhood council in my community because they don't care what we think south of Osborne. She didn't care. And she still doesn't care. And 5 years ago, she didn't have an accident. 5 years ago.
Brian.
She, you know what? She wasn't manager, but she was first in line and she was taking charge of the situation. And she is general manager now and the same situation's happening.
I want to elucidate on this woman's point about recusing yourself as a board member when there's a vote. Now, as a board member, I go to meet, I'm not a board member, I'm a stakeholder. There are times I look at people and I say, hey guys, you're supposed to recuse yourself. You have a conflict when you speak. So there are two things I'm going to say to you. So, as a board member, when you're supposed to recuse yourself, you decide to recuse yourself, you're permitted to speak on the issue. But if this is the board up here, where William and the ladies are speaking, you've got to step away from the board, away from here. You've got to come out to be part of the proletariat, and you've got to speak as a stakeholder here. Then when the vote comes up, you need to remove yourself from the premises. You can't be there. So, as a board member, you can speak when you recuse yourself, and you have to leave. That's a very important issue, and it means you aren't giving up your rights. Very, very important issue. I can also say to you, I've heard all kinds of craziness about Gracie Lou. I'm not going to cast judgment on Gracie Lou. I can say to you, yeah, I knew this woman was mangled. She got injured. Why did I know it? Because, yeah, I read something that was in my spam file, and it was from the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, and it was talking about what happens there. How do you think I knew the guy left to be a middle school teacher? It talked about the accident. Also, not all organizations have to be under the Brown Act. This one is not a government agency. This isn't a public agency per se. So you're not obligated to be under the Brown Act. But if you're connected to the city government in any way, shape, or form, use the Brown Act. On the Brown Act, if you have your doubts, when you get up there and you speak, you hope to have a note taker. And you say, you know, guys, I think you possibly could be in violation of the Brown Act on this. You didn't post this properly. Or, hey, you didn't have the proper thing. Ideally, the note taker puts it into the notes. Ideally, somebody downtown reads it and says, hey, you know, this stakeholder got up and talked about a possible Brown Act violation. Maybe we should check it out. So with that, keep up the good work, guys, and keep the mind open.
Time for maybe one more comment, if any?
Jay Handel, did you want to say anything?
Hi.
Hi.
Mr. Handel, thank you for showing up tonight. Okay, that concludes our meeting, everyone. If you saw, hold on. Closing statements from the core group.
Just very quickly, which is one reason why we have started the website, is to make it user-friendly, as he said, so that you can go there. You see the complaint form, you know where to file, you know who to send it to. So please check the website, because you'll find it much easier to function than Empower LA, trust me. Empower LA, you can hardly find anything, so we're trying to make it very user-friendly, stakeholder-friendly. Go to it and read what's on there, and I think it will be very helpful to you.
Right, and if any members here are board members, go back to your neighborhood councils and tell them that there are remedies for stakeholders and also for board members. I think that's the critical thing here. You need people to be involved who are on your boards and in your neighborhood council meetings. If they don't participate, then neighborhood council. Yes,
I have just,
Go ahead, Mary.
I just want to bring up two things. The newsletter, I almost think that Dunn should automatically put any new board member on the newsletter. The newsletter tells you everything. I know we signed up for it, but I really think Dunn should just put you on there, because that's where you read all of these things that are going on, such as Gracie Lou. I know all of us did that. And, I love Bank, I adore Bank, I adore the neighborhood councils and stuff like that. Bank helps neighborhood councils. Stakeholders have no place to go. And I know if Bank helps neighborhood councils function properly, stakeholders wouldn't have to look for some place to go. But this was a disconnect that I think many of us found with but Bank helped us out in many ways as a council.
Right, so this is basically what we're trying to do, is get stakeholders empowered, that they should be aware. So when you go, if you are a stakeholder, go back to your neighborhood council and say, look, there is this place, Seec-Reform on the website, and tell them they can go there, they can get information, and you're right, Denise, it doesn't have to be about grievances or anything like that. It needs to be about participation. But when you have a closed board that has a certain divisions and certain cliques, and they just vote one way and they do not hear the voice of the stakeholders, that's when you have a disenfranchised stakeholder and nobody goes to the meetings. They have $37,000 to spend the way they want. And you're right, MPG shouldn't even be in the mix, should not be in the mix at all. LAUSD has funds, LA Fire Department has funds, the Police Department has funds. It should be spent in the community to make the community better. And neighborhood councils do not do that. Do not. And if a stakeholder gets up and says something, it's like, oh my God, what planet are you from that you talk like this? I mean, I've had it before.
Okay, we are out of time. I'm sorry, we can't take any more.